Hello, you're watching TVP World News. I'm Janusz Lewicki. NATO scrambled its German Eurofighter jets late on Sunday after a Russian reconnaissance aircraft was detected flying over the Baltic Sea. In response to increasing Russian provocations, EU leaders are looking into more severe responses, both economic and military. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump is set to meet Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelenskyy this week. Randy Potts has more.
On the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, a meeting between Zelenskyy and Trump is expected to take place.
I'm going to meet with a lot of the leaders at the UN. We want to probably 20. Everybody wants to meet, but I'm one person. But we're going to meet with quite a few of the leaders.
Along the front, while Ukrainians boast their successes, it is also clear that Russia is making small advances in the Donetsk and Zaporizhzhia regions. Europeans are also stepping up military spending, especially after representatives from the Pentagon told European diplomats of their plans to scale back U.S. security support for Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. As the end of summer draws near, Russia has begun provoking countries all along NATO's eastern flank, with Russian drones entering Poland and the Baltics and Russian fighter jets over NATO waters in the Baltic Sea. The European Commission is reportedly weighing tariffs on Russian oil imports via the Druzhba pipeline in a bid to reduce the bloc's reliance on Moscow's energy. As some EU leaders seek diplomatic or economic reactions, others say military responses may also be required.
I believe that at this time we must be absolutely clear that if the rules are broken, we must respond appropriately, including militarily.
Pilots of British and French fighter jets are now in Poland and say they are ready to help defend NATO territory.
QRA means Quick Reaction Alert. It means that we are ready 24/7 to take off on demand. The demand comes from the chain of command of the NATO, and we are able, when necessary, to take off and be ready for any mission.
Even as Russian provocations increase, many experts believe the Russian military is still too occupied in Ukraine to open up a new front with NATO.
While war is raging in Ukraine, Russia is not ready physically, technically. Russia has no strength and capabilities to do a significant provocation or incursion into or test significantly NATO eastern defenses. While war is still going on.
Late on Sunday, Trump was asked if Poland or the Baltics were attacked by Russia, would he help defend them?
Yeah, I would.
For TVP World, Randy Potts.
Now, according to retired U.S. Army Commander General Ben Hodges, Russian jets circling over Estonia for 12 minutes wasn't a mistake, it was a test. In an interview with TVP World, the former top military official warned these deliberate probes are meant to expose NATO's weaknesses and that only a strong and visible response will deter Moscow from pushing further.
It's not an incursion, it's not just an airspace violation. That was an operation, a Russian operation to launch 21 drones that landed all inside Poland, or the 3 Russian aircraft that were flying around inside Estonia for about 12 minutes. These were not 3 pilots that were lost. This was a deliberate probe of our defenses to see how we would respond, how quick we would be. And I think what they're finding is that we still have not figured out how to stop these things. And so the consequences could be shoot down drones, even shoot down an aircraft, as our Turkish allies did back several years ago, or maybe an asymmetric response, some sort of a very significant response against, let's say, Shadow Fleet vessels in the Baltic Sea each time launches an operation into Allied airspace.
Speaking on World News Tonight, our guest Velina Tchakarova, the founder of the FACE Geopolitical Consultancy, made comments on the recent provocative actions taken by Russia. She listed the many ways Moscow is probing NATO's defenses along its eastern flank.
What we are observing right now is that Russia is probing the NATO member states in stages, drones into Polish and Romanian airspace, cyber and jamming attacks against Poland, now fighters over Estonia, And the message is simple, in my view. If NATO tolerates these provocations, they will continue and they will intensify.
The United States is looking to ensure that its decision to ease sanctions on Belarusian national airline Belavia does not become a backdoor for Russian airlines to obtain crucial spare parts. The Russian aviation sector, targeted by Western sanctions after the full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, has struggled to secure the new parts needed to service its Airbus and Boeing aircraft. On September 11, Washington allowed Belavia to access U.S. aircraft parts after Belarus released 52 political prisoners, restoring limited commercial ties. The airline operates 16 aircraft, including 9 Boeing planes. Experts worry that U.S. parts could end up with Russian airlines, already facing parts shortages due to sanctions. This concern has grown since the easing of sanctions, raising questions about tracking shipments. The decision now leaves U.S. manufacturers, especially Boeing, to decide whether to resume sales, while Airbus said it will carefully review any transactions. The EU's latest sanctions stop short of banning Russian tourists, a move praised by the Russian opposition in exile, but one Kiev still views with suspicion. And while some see a security risk in welcoming Russians, Tomasz Włostowski, managing partner at EU Strategies, argues the opposite in an interview with TVP World, saying that letting them spend their money in Europe may be the most effective way to drain Moscow's resources.
You know, from the economic perspective, we should welcome Russian tourists in Europe. And the reason for that is, it's cynical, but it's obvious. When Russians come to Europe, they spend their money. They spend their money and they don't really get anything valuable in return, right? They visit Europe, they see the sights, they spend money on hotels, on restaurants, on parks, on museums, and so on. That money is left in Europe. When they go back, they don't actually take anything of value for that money. So this is a way, brutally speaking, of draining sort of Russian money and keeping it in Europe. So economically speaking, the picture is, I think, very clear that we should not ban Russian tourists. However, there's a political component and a security component. And the political component is basically it's built on the idea that, look, we need to punish somehow ordinary Russians for the thing that Russia is doing in Ukraine. We cannot have a situation where people are getting killed by thousands in Ukraine, and Russian tourists, which are really, the Russian government supposed to represent, Russian tourists come to Europe and they behave and they act like nothing's happening. They go to the beach and enjoy the sun while Ukrainians are getting killed. Morally and ethically, that is a difficult proposition. So there's a justice element to it, but there's also the element that we should actually punish the Russian citizens so they can feel that there is a punishment to Russia in general for what their government is doing in Ukraine.
The European Union is considering trade measures targeting the Druzhba pipeline and its oil transit in its latest effort to phase out Russian oil. These would come separately from the planned 19th European sanctions package, which targets the Russian shadow fleet and the purchases of liquefied natural gas. The European Commission is looking to impose tariffs on the import of oil from Russia as a part of its external trade policy. The new trade measures would bypass the strict rules for sanctions, as those require the unanimous approval of all member states. This means that the executive branch of the European Union would not have to seek approval from Budapest and Bratislava, which have previously voted against measures to stop Russian oil imports, quoting energy security concerns. Imposing tariffs on oil transported through the Druzhba pipeline would be a significant step for the European Union in achieving independence from Russian oil. Churches, museums, memorials, libraries. Russia has damaged or destroyed more than 500 cultural sites in Ukraine, including 150 religious sites in more than 3 years of its war, according to UNESCO. Sonia Agata-Bishchan reports.
This is the over 1,000 years old St. Sophia Cathedral in Kiev. In June, it was damaged by a Russian missile strike.
Over the past 3 years of war, we have found the remains of Shahed drones on our premises, but the last direct hit we had before this was during World War II. There has been nothing since, until now.
St. Sophia Cathedral is one of the 508 cultural sites in Ukraine that UNESCO has verified as damaged since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion. Pursuant to the 1954 Hague Convention, cultural heritage is meant to be protected during armed conflicts.
This is intentionally, without any military necessity, attacking heritage, destroying it. I mean, this whole range of destruction for me is a violation of the Hague Convention. It's a war against culture and against heritage.
Describing the damage suffered by Ukraine, the country's former Prosecutor General Andriy Kostin said that in addition to the systematic destruction of cultural heritage, Russia is committing another crime, the theft of cultural values. And the two are also dangerous in a broader sense.
When you are looting museums, taking these collections to Russia, we know that in Russia they are doing, one has to call them propaganda shows, trying to rewrite Ukrainian history, saying that there is no Ukrainian history. Ukrainian history is a part of Russian history.
Ukrainian culture is what gives Ukrainians their sense of identity. That is precisely what the Russians are trying to destroy. The first things they do in occupied territories is ban the study of Ukrainian and burn Ukrainian books. That is why it is extremely important for us to preserve Ukrainian culture and promote it, because Ukrainian culture preserves us.
On September 4th, the Ukrainian Ministry of Culture signed a memorandum to establish the Ukrainian Cultural Heritage Fund. The initiative is expected to draw international support to safeguard Ukrainian artifacts and restore damaged sites. For TVP World, I'm Sonia Gatabishchan.
Overnight, a fire broke out at an electrical substation in Russia's Krasnodar region after a drone attack. According to regional authorities, the fire did not cause any casualties and began after drone wreckage crashed into the substation. While Russian officials have not disclosed the full extent of the damage, Ukrainian Telegram media channels are saying that the substation was hit by drones at least 5 times. Furthermore, overnight, Russian Telegram channels reported multiple explosions across the region. The strikes prompted authorities to temporarily suspend operations of the Sochi airport, disrupting 20 flights. The Krasnodar region, located just east of occupied Crimea, has become a common target of Ukrainian drones, as the region's infrastructure is critical for Russia's air operations in the Black Sea. According to Richard Geragossian, founding director of the Regional Studies Center, after years of dependence on Russia, Armenia is looking to the west. In an exclusive interview for TVP World, Geragossian said that Russia will soon begin to work on restoring the influence it lost in Armenia, and Armenia is preparing for the eventuality.
In fact, Russia, because of its failed invasion of Ukraine, has long been, let's say, neglecting its commitments in the region. But for Armenia, this is also a belated realization and recognition of Russia becoming a dangerously unreliable partner. For this reason, Armenia is not only looking to the West, but is also diversifying security partners, even in the Asia-Pacific region. For Armenia, years of overdependence on Russia has finally been recognized as a tremendous threat to real independence. But given the storm on the horizon, we do expect an angry, vengeful Russian President Putin to begin trying to restore lost Russian power and influence. And this is why Armenia has invested in resiliency in order to resist such Russian pressure.
In Budapest, tens of thousands rallied on Sunday accusing Prime Minister Viktor Orban of using public money for political campaigns that mislead voters and fuel hatred. Organizers said that around 50,000 people filled Heroes Square in one of the largest protests this year. Demonstrators criticized Orban's state-funded information campaigns, which have cost millions of euros since he returned to power in 2010. Critics say these ads attack opponents and push divisive narratives, such as opposing Ukraine's EU membership. Meanwhile, the government insists the campaigns are factual and necessary. Protesters carried banners and even a zebra balloon, now a symbol of elite privilege linked to the Orban family estate. The rally comes just weeks before a planned national consultation on taxation, which the opposition claims is another manipulative survey to boost support for the ruling Fidesz party. A similar consultation earlier this year on Ukraine's EU bid cost nearly 20 million euros in advertising. And that's all for now. Thank you for watching, and please stay with us here on TVP World.